Dr. Elena Santos stood at the edge of the excavation site, her breath visible in Nova Primus's crisp morning air. The twin suns had barely crested the horizon, casting long shadows across the alien landscape. After 3 years of searching, she'd finally found something that defied explanation. Dr. Santos, her assistant, Kai Chen, called from the bottom of the dig site. "You need to see this." Elena carefully made her way down the reinforced slope, her boots leaving prints in the rusty soil. The dig site had started as a simple survey for the colony's expansion project, but what they'd uncovered went far beyond anything in the settlement council's plans. The metallic surface they'd exposed gleamed despite millions of years of burial, its seamless construction unlike anything humanity had ever created. Geometric patterns traced across its surface in ways that seemed to shift when viewed from different angles. The dating results came back, Kai said, his dark eyes wide with excitement. "The material is at least 20 million years old. That's impossible, right? I mean, Earth didn't even have primates back then." Elena ran her hand along the surface, feeling a slight warmth that couldn't be explained by the morning sun. "What's impossible is that it's still active." "Active?" Kai stepped back instinctively. "You mean it's powered?" "More than that." Elena pulled out her tablet, showing him the energy readings they'd been collecting for the past week. "It's adapting. These patterns, they're changing. Slowly, but measurably. It's responding to our presence." A shadow fell across them as Colony Security Chief Marcus Reeves approached the edge of the excavation. His weathered face bore the stern expression Elena had come to expect whenever her discoveries complicated his job of keeping Nova Primus's 50,000 colonists safe. "Please tell me you found something simple and explainable, Doctor. Perhaps some nice fossils." Elena smiled despite herself. "Sorry, Chief, but you might want to call the council." This just became more than an archaeological curiosity. As if in response to her words, a low hum emanated from the exposed surface. The geometric patterns began to pulse with a soft blue light, casting ethereal shadows across the dig site. "Everyone out," Marcus ordered, his hand moving to his sidearm. "Now." But Elena stood transfixed as the patterns rearranged themselves, forming what could only be described as writing. Symbols flowed across the surface like water, settling into distinct shapes that tugged at something in her mind. "I can read it," she whispered, shocking herself with the revelation. Marcus grabbed her arm. "That's impossible. This predates human writing by millions of years." "Not read exactly," Elena corrected herself, still staring at the flowing symbols. "But I understand it. It's like remembering something I never knew I forgot." The humming grew louder, and more sections of the buried structure began to illuminate, revealing the true scale of what they'd discovered. This wasn't just a singular artifact. They were standing on top of something vast. Colony alarms began to blare in the distance. Elena's tablet exploded with notifications as similar structures across the settlement started activating. The morning sky filled with urgent messages as panic spread through Nova Primus. "It's a network," Elena realized, her scientific mind racing ahead of her fear. "We didn't just find one site. The whole colony is built on top of it. We've been living above it this entire time." Marcus was already calling for reinforcements, but Elena barely heard him. The symbols were telling a story, one that challenged everything humanity thought they knew about their place in the galaxy. "We weren't the first to come here," she said, her voice trembling with the weight of the discovery. "But we might be the first to come back." Kai looked up from his own readings, his face pale. "Dr. Santos, the energy signatures, they're not just here. We're picking up activations all across the planet. Whatever this is, it's waking up." Before Elena could respond, a new symbol appeared on the surface, one that made her blood run cold. It wasn't alien at all. It was a perfect representation of human DNA. "Chief," she called to Marcus, who was coordinating the security response. "We need to get the council together right now. This isn't just about archaeology anymore. This is about why we're here." Why humanity came to Nova Primus in the first place. The twin suns climbed higher in the sky as Nova Primus faced its first real crisis since colonization. But Elena couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't a crisis at all. It was a homecoming. The question was, who, or what, had prepared this welcome? In the colony's medical center, the first reports were already coming in. Children across the settlement were drawing the same symbols that now glowed beneath the surface of their world. Many claimed to hear a song that no adult could perceive. Humanity had thought they were pioneers, pushing into the unknown reaches of space. But as Elena stared at the ancient writings that somehow felt newer than tomorrow, she realized they might have been following a path laid out eons ago. The discovery wasn't just going to change their understanding of history. It was going to change humanity's future. And Elena Santos stood at the crossroads, holding the first piece of a puzzle that stretched across millions of years and countless light years. As she made her way back to the colony center, the words she'd understood from the alien surface echoed in her mind. The children of the stars have returned. The next phase begins. The Nova Primus Council chamber had never been so crowded. 3 days after the initial discovery, representatives from every sector of the colony gathered to hear Dr. Elena Santos's findings. The atmosphere was tense, charged with equal parts fear and anticipation. Colony Administrator Sarah Chen sat at the head of the council table, her usual composed demeanor showing signs of strain. Dr. Santos, you're telling us this entire planet is essentially one massive piece of technology. Elena projected her latest scans onto the chamber's main display. Not the whole planet, but a significant portion of its crust has been modified. The structures we found aren't just buildings. They're nodes in a vast network that spans the entire habitable zone. And it's responding to our children. Sarah's voice carried the weight of both professional concern and personal worry. Her own daughter was among those affected. Not just responding, Elena corrected. It's communicating with them. The symbols they're drawing, the songs they claim to hear, they're not random. They're receiving information. Chief Reeves stepped forward, his security team's preliminary report hovering beside Elena's projection. We've documented 317 cases of children showing unusual abilities in the past 72 hours. Enhanced pattern recognition, unprecedented mathematical insights, and in some cases, direct interaction with the activated structures. A murmur ran through the chamber. Parents shifted uncomfortably in their seats, while those without children watched with a mixture of fascination and unease. Dr. James Morrison, head of the colony's medical division, cleared his throat. The affected children show no signs of physical distress. In fact, their neural activity suggests increased cognitive function. Whatever this technology is doing, it's not harming them. Yet, someone muttered from the back of the room. Elena zoomed in on one particular section of data. The technology isn't changing our children. It's responding to changes that were already happening. Look at these genetic markers. They're not mutations. They're activations of dormant sequences in our DNA. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Sarah Chen leaned forward, her dark eyes intense. Are you suggesting these structures were left here specifically for us? That someone modified human DNA millions of years ago. Before Elena could answer, all the displays in the chamber flickered. The lights dimmed, then brightened. A low hum, similar to the one from the dig site, filled the air. It's happening again, Chief Reeves announced, already moving toward the door. Another activation sequence. But this was different. The symbols that appeared on the screens weren't the alien script from before. They were equations, diagrams, and what looked like technical specifications, all written in modern human notation. That's impossible, Kai whispered from his position beside Elena. The system is translating itself into our language. Elena shook her head, understanding flooding through her. No, it's not translating. It's learning. Through the children. Every interaction, every pattern they recognize, every song they hear. It's been gathering data, learning how we think, how we communicate. As if to confirm her theory, Words began to form on the main display. Neural integration, phase 1, complete. Proceeding with historical data transfer. The chamber erupted in chaos as thousands of images flooded the screens, scenes from Earth's history, but from impossible angles, impossible times. Views of ancient civilizations that predated recorded history, moments of crucial evolutionary leaps, and always in the background, hints of the same technology they'd discovered here. Look, Elena pointed to a recurring pattern in the images. These structures, this technology, it's been on Earth all along. Hidden, dormant, waiting. We didn't find it here by accident. We were guided here. Sarah Chen stood, her authority cutting through the growing panic. To what end? Why guide us across 27 light years just to show us this? The answer came not from the displays, but from outside. The chamber's windows offered a clear view of Nova Primus's central plaza, where dozens of children had gathered. They stood in a perfect circle, their hands linked, faces turned upward toward the twin suns. As the adults watched in amazement, the children began to speak in unison, their voices carrying clearly through the chamber's audio system. We are the bridge between what humanity was and what it will become, between the guardians who left and those who will return. Dr. Morrison's medical scanner beeped urgently. Their brainwave patterns, they're synchronizing, not just with each other, but with the planet's network. Elena felt a shiver run down her spine as she recognized the truth. We thought we were exploring, pioneering new worlds, but we were following a path laid out millions of years ago. The question is, do we continue down that path now that we know it exists? The children's voice rose again, but this time it carried a warning. Choose quickly. The Guardians approach. They come to test if we are worthy of the legacy they left behind. In orbit, Nova Primus's early warning system detected the first anomalies. Something was emerging from the space between spaces, drawing near to test humanity's readiness for a destiny planned eons ago. Sarah Chen turned to Elena, her expression resolute. Doctor, you have 1 hour. Tell us everything you've learned. After that, we need to decide if we face what's coming as the humanity that left Earth, or as the humanity these beings believe we could become. Outside, the children continued their silent vigil, their minds bridging the gap between human consciousness and ancient technology, while somewhere above, humanity's first test approached. They came in ships that defied conventional physics, vessels that seemed to fold space around themselves like origami. Nova Primus's defense systems tracked 7 distinct craft descending through the atmosphere, each one larger than the colony's largest building. Elena watched from the observation deck as the vessels arranged themselves in a perfect heptagon around the city. Their surfaces rippled like liquid metal, reflecting the light of the twin suns in ways that made her eyes water. Beautiful, aren't they? A small voice said beside her. It was Lisa Chen, the administrator's daughter, one of the first children to show signs of change. They've waited so long for this moment. Elena knelt beside the 12-year-old girl. You can sense them. We all can. Lisa's eyes reflected the same shifting patterns as the ships above. They're called the Guardians, but that's not their real name. They've had so many names across so many worlds. Chief Reeves's voice crackled over the colony's comm system. All citizens, remain calm and in your designated safe zones. First contact protocols are in effect. But these weren't the first contacts humanity had dreamed of. The ships didn't land. They simply ceased to exist in one place and appeared in another, materializing in Nova Primus's central plaza where the children had gathered. The Guardians emerged from their vessels like light streaming through prisms. Their forms were vaguely humanoid, but composed of crystalline structures that constantly shifted and realigned. Each movement created cascades of color that painted the air around them. Administrator Chen, flanked by Elena, and Chief Reeves, led the colony's delegation to meet them. The contrast between the humans' cautious approach and the children's eager gathering around the visitors spoke volumes. We greet the descendants of our great experiment. The lead guardian's voice resonated directly in their minds, its crystalline form pulsing with each word. You have awakened the systems as intended. Sarah Chen stepped forward, her voice steady despite the extraordinary situation. You speak our language. We speak all languages. Another guardian responded. We have watched your kind since you first stood upright on your world. We have guided your evolution, prepared your genetic code for this moment. Elena felt a chill run down her spine. The dormant sequences in our DNA, you put them there. We are the gardeners of intelligence, the first guardian explained. For billions of years, we have seeded the galaxy with potential. Most species fail. Some achieve technology, but lose their soul. A few, a precious few, achieve the balance necessary for the next step. And humanity? Sarah asked, though Elena suspected she already knew the answer. You are approaching a crossroads. The Guardian's form shifted, creating a holographic display of human history. Your species possesses a unique combination of traits: adaptability, creativity, and most importantly, the capacity to choose your own path even when given none. Lisa stepped forward, moving to stand between the humans and Guardians. They're not just here to meet us. They're here to test us. The lead Guardian's form pulsed with approval. The child understands. The systems you have discovered, the changes manifesting in your young. These are tools, nothing more. How you choose to use them will determine if you are ready for what comes next. And if we're not ready, Chief Reeves asked, his hand never far from his weapon. The Guardian's colors darkened. Then, like many before you, your potential will be archived, and the experiment will end. We cannot risk allowing unprepared species to access the legacy of those who came before. Elena processed this information against everything they discovered. The structures, the technology, they're not just tools for our development. They're a test to see how we handle power we didn't earn. Precisely. The Guardian's form brightened. Already you show wisdom, but wisdom alone is not enough. You must demonstrate that humanity can handle the responsibility of what we offer. Sarah Chen's expression hardened. And if we refuse? If we choose not to participate in your test? The question seemed to surprise the Guardians, their forms momentarily losing coherence. In all our existence, no species has ever refused evaluation. Then you've never really encountered humanity before, Sarah replied. We appreciate the gifts you've given us, the potential you've helped unlock. But we will not be tested like laboratory specimens. We choose our own path. The air itself seemed to vibrate with tension. The Guardians' colors shifted rapidly, their forms becoming more angular, less organic. You do not understand. Their collected voice resonated with newfound intensity. The test has already begun. Your children are already changing. The process cannot be stopped. No, Elena interjected, understanding flooding through her. The process began the moment our ancestors stood upright, didn't it? Everything since then, every choice, every advancement, every struggle, it's all been part of the test. The lead Guardian moved closer, its crystalline form towering over them. And now you face the final choice. Accept our guidance and protection as you complete your transformation, or face the challenges ahead alone. Lisa suddenly laughed, the sound cutting through the tension like a beam of sunlight. But that's what humans do best, isn't it? Face the unknown, alone but together. The other children joined her, their combined consciousness reaching out to touch both their human parents and the ancient Guardians. In that moment, Elena saw what the Guardians couldn't. Humanity had already passed their most important test. They had chosen to face their future on their own terms. The Nova Primus night cycle brought no respite from tension. The Guardian ships hung in the sky like artificial stars, their surfaces reflecting the light of the colony's bioluminescent gardens. Inside the emergency council chamber, humanity faced its greatest decision. They'd given us 12 hours, Sarah Chen announced to the assembled colony leadership. Either we accept their guidance and protection, or they'll contain the threat we represent. Elena studied the data streaming across her tablet. The changes in the colony's children were accelerating. The neural network they're forming is growing stronger. They're not just communicating with each other anymore. They're creating something new. A collective consciousness, Dr. Morrison asked, reviewing his own medical data. More like a bridge, Lisa Chen explained. The girl had refused to leave the council chamber, and something in her altered presence made it impossible to dismiss her. We're not losing ourselves. We're gaining everything. Every memory, every experience, every possibility. Chief Reeves leaned forward. The Guardians say they want to protect us, to guide us. But I've never seen a protection that didn't come with chains. They're afraid. Elena realized, the pieces finally clicking into place. All their talk about tests and preparation. They're afraid of what we might become. The chamber's main display activated, showing a real-time map of the colony. Points of light represented each changed child, their connections forming a web of impossible complexity. At the center, the ancient structures pulsed with increasing power. Look at this, Kai highlighted a section of data. The structures aren't just responding to the children anymore. They're responding to all of us. The changes are spreading to the adults, but more slowly, more naturally, Elena finished. Because we're choosing it, not following their program, but finding our own way. Sarah Chen stood, her decision visible in her stance. We need to vote, not just the council, everyone. If we're going to face the consequences of this choice, we all need to make it. Within an hour, the colony's communication network hummed with activity. Every adult colonist received a simple question. Accept the Guardian's protection and guidance, or face an unknown future alone. The results stunned everyone, including the humans. 97% chose independence. The Guardians' response was immediate. Their ships descended lower, energy fields beginning to form around the colony. You choose unwisely. Their collective voice resonated through every mind. The power you are acquiring must be properly controlled, properly guided. But something unexpected was happening. As the Guardians moved to contain the colony, the ancient structures responded, not with weapons or shields, but with understanding. Lisa and the other children stood in the central plaza, their minds linked not just with each other now, but with every human in the colony. Through their shared consciousness, Elena felt the true nature of what the Guardians had created, and what they had failed to predict. You made a mistake. Lisa's voice carried the weight of countless minds. You spent so long guiding other species, preparing them for some perfect ideal of advancement, that you forgot the most important thing. The Guardians' forms flickered with uncertainty. We have guided countless civilizations toward enlightenment. No. Elena stepped forward, feeling the connection through the network. You've guided them toward your enlightenment, your way of thinking, your way of being. But humanity was never meant to follow anyone's path but our own. The ancient structures thrummed with power, but not the kind the Guardians had intended. Instead of weapons or defensive systems, they were creating connections. Between people, between minds, between possibilities. Your test was flawed from the beginning, Sarah Chen declared, standing beside her daughter. You wanted to see if we could handle the power responsibly, but you defined responsibility by your own limitations. The children raised their hands in unison, and the network they'd created became visible to everyone. It wasn't the rigid, controlled structure the Guardians had planned. It was organic, chaotic, beautiful in its complexity. This is what you could never understand, Lisa explained. Her consciousness merged with the collective, but still distinctly herself. The true test isn't about controlling power. It's about growing into it naturally, about choosing to face the unknown together. The Guardians' containment field wavered as they encountered something they'd never seen in all their eons of guiding species, a power that grew from choice, from connection, from the very chaos they sought to control. You are making a terrible mistake, they warned. Without proper guidance, the power you're developing will destroy you. Elena laughed, feeling the truth through the network. No, it won't. Because we're not developing power. We're developing understanding. Of ourselves, of each other, of the universe itself. The changed children began to glow, not with the artificial light of the guardians, but with something warmer, more human. Around them, the adults felt the changes beginning, not imposed from outside, but growing from within. This is your final warning. The guardians announced, their ships charging with energy. Accept our protection, or face the consequences. Sarah Chen looked at her daughter, then at her colony, feeling the connections between them all. She smiled. We choose to face them together. The guardians struck at dawn. Energy lanced from their ships, designed to sever the neural connections forming between the colonists. But where their power touched, it found something unexpected, not resistance, but acceptance. The humans weren't fighting the energy. They were understanding it, incorporating it, learning from it. Impossible, the Guardians' collective voice resonated with disbelief. No species has ever. That's your problem, Elena said, standing with the others in the central plaza. You're so focused on what's been done before that you can't see what's possible now. The network of human consciousness had evolved beyond simple communication. Through their connection to the ancient structures and each other, they could see the very fabric of reality as the Guardians did, but through uniquely human eyes. Lisa Chen stepped forward, her consciousness bridging the gap between human and Guardian understanding. You've spent billions of years preparing species for ascension, but you never asked the most important question. What if there isn't just one path to evolution? The Guardian's crystalline forms shifted with uncertainty. Our way ensures stability, control, safety, and stagnation, Sarah Chen added, holding her daughter's hand. You've guided so many species to the same destination that you've forgotten the joy of discovering new ones. Through their shared consciousness, the colonists could feel the Guardians' growing confusion. Their ships hung motionless in the air. Their energy attacks ceased. For the first time in their ancient existence, they faced something their vast experience couldn't explain. Elena felt a new understanding bloom through the network. The structures you left here, the changes you encoded in our DNA, they weren't just tools for advancement. They were seeds of potential. But like any seed, what grows depends not just on the genetic code, but on the environment, the conditions, the choices made. The children of Nova Primus raised their hands in unison, and the network they'd created became visible to all. It wasn't the rigid, crystalline structure of Guardian technology, but something organic, flowing, constantly adapting. Where Guardian power sought to control reality, human consciousness learned to dance with it. Look, Lisa commanded, her mind projecting understanding to both humans and Guardians alike. This is what evolution really means. Through their shared vision, they could see the truth. Each human mind was still distinct, unique, but connected in ways that amplified their individual strengths rather than subsuming them. The chaos of human emotion and thought wasn't a weakness to be controlled, but a source of endless creativity and adaptation. We're not ascending to some predetermined level of existence, Elena explained, feeling the truth of it in every fiber of her being. We're expanding into what we could always become in our own way, at our own pace. The Guardian ships began to pulse with new colors, their crystalline crews experiencing something they hadn't felt in eons. Change. Your path is uncertain, they projected. Dangerous, without structure. Of course it is, Sarah smiled. That's what makes it worth taking. Through their network, the colonists felt a shift in the ancient structures beneath their feet. The technology wasn't just responding to them anymore. It was learning from them, adapting to their way of thinking just as they had learned to understand it. You came to test us, Lisa addressed the Guardians, her voice carrying the weight of humanity's potential, to see if we were ready for your knowledge. But we've all learned something more valuable. There are as many paths to evolution as there are species to walk them. The Guardians' forms began to shift, their rigid crystalline structures becoming more fluid, more adaptive. In all our existence, their voice held a new tone. Wonder, we never considered that the student could become the teacher. Elena felt the change rippling through both humans and guardians. Perhaps that's the greatest test of any species, not whether they can follow a path to enlightenment, but whether they can find their own way and help others do the same. The energy fields around Nova Primus collapsed, not in defeat, but in transformation. The Guardian ships descended, no longer as containers of power, but as bridges between two species learning to see the universe through each other's eyes. "We would learn from you," the Guardians announced, their forms now pulsing in harmony with the human network. "If you would teach us how to dream again." Sarah Chen looked at her daughter, then at her colony, at humanity standing on the edge of an evolution uniquely their own. "We'll learn together," she said. "That's what humans do best." Above them, the twin suns of Nova Primus rose fully into the sky, illuminating not an ending, but a beginning. Humanity hadn't just passed a test. They'd transformed it into something greater. In choosing their own path, they'd opened new possibilities not just for themselves, but for every species seeking to understand their place in the cosmic dance. The children of Nova Primus laughed, their joy rippling through the network, touching guardians and humans alike with the pure delight of discovery. In that moment, every mind connected to the network understood a fundamental truth. The greatest power in the universe wasn't control or guidance or even knowledge. It was the courage to choose your own path and the wisdom to help others find theirs.